Hello, my name is Mike. This is a bike. This is a 1986 Suzuki Invader. It's Suzuki Intruder, one of those names. And I got it really cheap. Had to drive a little ways to go get it. And make a good little project bike. For once, it's not a victory. And so that's what this video is about. I'm not trying to make it one condensed video instead of multiple parts like I usually do, because it really shouldn't take a whole lot to get this thing back on the road. It's already got decent tires, and the engine does have good compression and spark. So stick around, right, Larry? Somewhere in a dusty, dirty back alley in western Arizona, not far from historic Route 66, is an old fart trying to cram a square peg into a round hole. He'll work on anything, just as long as it's got at least 2 cool wheels. Let's have a closer look at this fine unit. Yeah, you know, it's got a little bit of chrome rustage stuff. The guy I got it from mentioned that the clutch no worky, needed bleeding or something, and the lever doesn't budge at all. So I pulled this little cover off here. So there's our slave cylinder. If all it needs is bleeding, it shouldn't be a big deal. But if it's a bad cylinder, well, it may be a challenge to find. The battery, well, kind of goes in a weird place. That's our voltage regulator. So just, put that back there. I got wires. There's a wire connected to a wire. There's another wire. These are negative terminals of the battery. Well, there's no place for the battery. Not here, anyway. It's actually on the other side. This has to be the most ridiculous location for a battery I have ever seen. It's down under the bike, and you got this trap door gizmo thing. Another wire. There's my positive terminals. Oh, God. Tied to the other end of that white wire. So somehow I've got to connect those to the battery on one side, and then that other wire on the other side, and then I got to try and stuff that battery up inside here after I make those connections. However, I'm going to do that, and then we can, close this ridiculous door. This is stupid. How in the world? Maybe I'll just, take the exhaust and the rear swing arm off and, just disassemble the entire bike so I can put a battery in it. That might actually be easier. And we have, significant rust on the spokes. So the bike's seen a little bit of weather. But it's not terrible. It's, you know, some of it'll come back. It is a liquid-cooled bike. Even though it's got cooling fins, it does have a small radiator here and a forced air cooling fan, which means that, well, you don't have to worry about it overheating. And the air box is here, and it has actually two carburetors. There's one carburetor for this cylinder back here, up under here, and there's one in between the cylinders for the front cylinder. It does have two exhausts on this side, but it's kind of interesting because the exhaust actually exits for the front cylinder on this side, and it does this real strange kind of go forward and then go down and then go back and then go under just to get to the other side. It's kind of weird, but you know, Suzuki thought it was stylish, so they rolled with it. So let me show you where we're at on our Suzuki Invader, Suzuki Intruder project bike. It's a little different than most bikes. Alright, so when the guy was showing it to me, he was able to spray a little something into the intake and get it to pop a little, but it didn't seem to be getting any fuel. Now, he'd cleaned out the fuel tank, but it turns out on these bikes there is an electric fuel pump right down here. Now, using my handy dandy testicle light, I could go into this connector right here, and when I turn the key on, it does get a prime, so the pump should come on, yet it does not. So, I've got an a fuel pump ordered for it, and that'll at least get fuel to the carburetors. Now, this engine's a little different than just about anything else I've worked on, because you see both cylinders are essentially the same. The intake is at the back, so you can see a carburetor here for this one, and the exhaust is at the front. Same with the back cylinder. The carburetor is way down back here, and the exhaust is right here. So the fuel comes from the tank at this connection. The pump draws it down and then pushes it up to this carburetor on one side, and then this gas line here goes to the carburetor here. So you really can't gravity feed these carburetors. They do require a pressurized system because, well, the fuel's got to come from one carburetor to the one that sits relatively higher than the other one. So until I get a fuel pump, I don't really think I know what the condition of the carburetors are. I'm going to guess they're probably mucked up. But we'll give it a try. We'll get a fuel pump in it. We'll see if it fires. If it doesn't, then we'll dig through this hornet's nest of wires and cables and tubes and try to get those carbonators out and decarbon the carbonators. Now, as I mentioned a little while ago, I have two intakes. I have two air filters. There's no filter there, and there's an air filter down here. If I wanted to test fire this without fuel, I could use, you know, the old juice. And we'll just shoot a little juice into each one independently and see if we can get it to fire on both cylinders. I have a completely dead weak battery here that may not start it, but we'll certainly give it a try. Oh, I need a little assistance from the battery assistance device. There we go. 11 volts, 12 volts, and we may have enough. So we'll give it a shot here. Key on, and we'll push the magic start button. Oh. Clutch switch. I need two hands, or I can bypass it. If I just swap these yellow wires here, I can bypass the clutch switch. Clutch switch bypassed. Run switch is on. Let's see if she pops. Whew. That was wild. Let's try that again. Juice, please. Give her a little juice, and a little throttle this time, perhaps. But anyway, we got some poppage. It indicates that the cylinders are compressing and that the sparkling valves are sparkling. I don't think our battery's up to it today. It's a little weak. Yeah. That sounded encouraging. Let's encourage it some more. Stronger. Extremely flammable, what's that? That's what I want. Extremely flammable is better. Here we go. And go. Well, don't sound too bad. So we've got the new fuel pump mounted, and we've got a jerry-rig battery and a charger. Now what I've been doing is pouring fuel directly into the float bowls. See if we can't get this thing to fire off. Got her choked. That's what I'm talking about. Alrighty, so my battery has arrived. That was kind of the last thing we were waiting on. We've got it to run. To be able to start it and all that, we do need a battery. And I went to order a battery, and of course, being the cheapskate that I am, I decided not to buy the correct battery for this bike. What do I mean by correct battery? Well, here's the old one. It is a PTX16BS-1. Well, this is a STX16-BS. No one. The one simply means that the terminals come in from the side. And remember, I showed you how strange the compartment is for that battery. You have to terminate the battery after it's installed and got to come in from the outside of the bike and terminate here. But this correct battery was $10 more than the one with normal terminals. They just, either go in the front or the top. Now, being a cheapskate, I figured I'd save a whole $10 and just simply get a couple of L brackets and, tack weld a nut on the back. And then I could put these on here like this. And voila, I have converted it from a top post to a side post. Now, if that isn't being a cheapskate, I don't know what is. Voila, side post. And that should take the place of the original battery just fine. Got a little insulative cap there, just, because I'm going into a metal housing. Anybody ever connect both ends of a battery together? Well, it's a good way to arc weld. I don't feel like arc welding today. Well, here we go. Let's see how this all pans out here. That's just stupid. What the hell were they thinking? No, they weren't. Oh, this is not good. Oh, I didn't bring a bolt. Gonna need a bolt to hold that trap door up once I get it in place. If I get it in place. Definitely need to invest in some kind of a motorcycle lift that'll allow me to work on the undercarriage of strange, exotic, imported Japanese motorcycles like this fine unit here. How am I gonna... I can't get a straight shot on it. And if I tilt it at an angle, I run the risk of, you know, shorting out the terminals. If you guys see any lightning flashes, you know, immediately call the fire department, please. Oh, that worked. Kinda. Looky here, it's going up. This is, it's awkward, but it works. Now get in there, you. Oh, get out there, you. Other parts are trying to get in the way. Wow, that's just freaking stupid. Oh my God. I need a bolt for the other side, but that'll hold us for now. Let me show you how the terminals look here. Alright. So now if we look, you can see there's my positive. And I got a little bit of plastic surrounding it, so it should be pretty well insulated. And then the negative is similar on the other side, and I don't care if it touches stuff because, well, it's grounded anyway. We'll just route this cable here back from the other side. And it tucks right down there. Put a bolt in that one, and we do the same on the other side. Kind of an odd angle. Nice and tight. Okay. And then we can put our voltage regulator back up where it belongs on this bracket here. I see why it was moved, because you can't get to the negative terminal with that voltage regulator in the way. Very strange. Now, if you've ever worked on old vehicles that sat around for a while, one of the main things that goes wrong is the fuel system. For whatever reason, fuel breaks down, especially modern fuel. It's got a lot of chemicals in it and ethanol and some other stuff. It just doesn't last very long. Now, I have on a couple of occasions dug into a bike that had been sitting for a while, and evidently the previous owner had drained all the fluids and all the fuel out of the carburetors as well as the tank. I was able to put gas in it and fire it right up. Now, how often does that happen? Pretty much never. So on this bike, well, you saw me fire it up. I put a little funnel on the feed hoses for each of the carburetors, filled the float bowls, and it fired up and ran fine on both cylinders. It even idled. Well, lo and behold, I put the whole thing back together, put the tank back on it, connect all the stuff in the fuel pump and everything, and I couldn't hardly get it to run for nothing. And I don't know why it was even able to run in the first place. It shouldn't have been able to if the carburetor was gummed up with decomposed gasoline. So I tore into the carburetor, and as you can see here, I got it apart while it's still kind of on the bike. I didn't want to disconnect all the cables because it's got gadgets and cables and stuff. And I pulled it apart, and it was the back carburetor on the back cylinder was just plugged solid with crud. So I got in there with my little small tool and I cleaned out all the passages, and I realized the emulsion tube, which is at the end of the needle jet, had to be removed. So, and it's kind of a snug fit, like a press fit. So you tap it out from the bottom of the carburetor up into the chamber where you can pull that emulsion tube out. And in the process, because, well, not particularly bright, since I used the end of a Phillips screwdriver to kind of tap it through that opening, I managed to damage the threads where the main jet threads into the emulsion tube. Yeah, buggered it up bad. I went online, thought, well, I'll just buy a new one, And no, not available anywhere by anybody. even got a part number from Suzuki. It's from Suzuki. And it's just simply not available. This is the problem you run into on these older machines. You got to be nice to them because those parts, they're getting harder to find. Fortunately, I just happen to have a tap, the correct size and thread pitch. I was able to clean up those threads, put it all back together, get my main jet put back in, put the thing back together, and finally it starts and runs. And, well, no, not finally. I had to replace some leaking fuel hoses as well. But anyway, bottom line is, this happened. Well, finally, it is a functioning, rideable bike. Now, still got to do an oil change on it and, some little cosmetic stuff. The backrest, well, guys, I pointed this out earlier, it's pivoting backrest. It's not really supposed to be. But anyway, that concludes this video. We'll probably come back to this a little bit in other videos, get it cleaned up a little bit more, make it a little bit more pleasant bike. But for a beginner bike, this thing is great. It's perfect for somebody to learn on. It's not real heavy, and it's not excessively high performance where somebody can get themselves into trouble. So we'll adjourn this video and come on back for the next one. Don't know what it's going to be. Kind of like to put a V8 in the old rusty grenade, so I'm still browsing for engines. I'll do that eventually. And I still have to go back and address the IKEA jackpot. Still haven't quite dialed in its functional problem, but we'll get there. So come on back for the next video. Thank you so much for watching and subscribing. See you next time.